Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. And we have ourselves a busy show dominated by the pigskin. Alongside of me right now are Ryan Skillroot and, of course, my great young co-host, Louis Adioace.
What's going on?
What's going
How's it going?
on? No, nobody's going to sit there and ask me to take singing lessons, even though Louis has a singing show. We're not looking at
a singing show. I don't think I have a singing show. I have a music show where I
whatever. It's all the
but
same
it's okay.
stuff. It's all vocal, whatever. Just try to give me my glory, glory, hallelujah with whatever I think music should be. But meanwhile, we'll sing to a different tune, and that'll be fantasy football style. And we bring on, and Mr. Skillroot, what you got, brother?
Well, it seems that A.J. Green has done quite the fake out, the major pump fake, saying that everyone thought that he was going to be ready to play this week, and it turns out that he has had a setback, and he is out indefinitely. So, as far as your fantasy rosters go, at this point, I would drop, as we get closer to the playoffs, I would just drop A.J. Green and see if you can find someone else to fill a position. As far as the Bengals go, we'll see where they can go. Really, it's still the Tyler Boyd and then the Erickson and Tate show in terms of the wide receivers. The running game is still atrocious. Hopefully, Ryan Finley can add a little spark to that offense. Unfortunately, they have a very difficult matchup this week against Baltimore. So, for the most part, I really don't want anything to do fantasy-wise with the Bengals offense this week.
Yeah, well, I took your advice last night, much to the dismay of my other half, and added the Baltimore Ravens defense. When she was going to take it, I got it first, but hopefully she got Indianapolis anyways. I just didn't trust that 49ers defense on Monday night against the Seattle Seahawks. So, good stuff.
With the kind of season that Russell Wilson's been having, it definitely could be a little difficult to stick with the 49ers with this kind of a matchup.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was a move that I made thanks to you. All right, so Jacoby Brissett is on track to play Sunday versus the Dolphins. Boy, the man has quick healing powers. Didn't look good last week.
Yeah, he. As far as it looks like, what's going on with him it was an MCL strain that they just kind of wanted to make sure that nothing was too off them. He said he felt so much better on Monday and Tuesday, was able to practice Tuesday and Wednesday, at least on a limited capacity. Has not had to deal with any swelling in his knee, which is usually what causes the issues and forces guys to sit out. And so because of that, he's had no swelling, no major soreness or lingering issues from the injury. He is going to be good to go, which I think elevates not only Marlon Mack, but also the tight ends. I think that Eric Ebron could get a little bit of a bump this week. He apparently had a meeting with the coaching staff about play calling on the offense and his involvement in the offense, and so it very well could be that the squeaky wheel is going to get a little bit of grease this week, and so Eric Ebron could be an interesting play in terms of fantasy this week because of that. And I think again having Brissett healthy is another plus for that as well.
Yeah, Eric Ebron is the guy who probably suffered the most by Andrew Luck's abrupt retirement because they had some pretty good chemistry amongst each other.
Yeah, it was looking really good for him, and just when Luck went down, I think that pretty much for the most part ended Ebron's great value.
Isn't it? All right. Well, James Conner doesn't seem like he's got any value at all since you said he's out versus the Rams.
Okay, so this isn't official. This is more of a call that I'm making based on what I've seen. I've seen a couple tweets out there from journalists who covered the Pittsburgh Steelers saying that it is unlikely that he plays. I'm going to go ahead and call it out. If you have Jalen Samuels or have a way to get Jalen Samuels, I think that he will be a very decent play this week against the Rams. They tend to be somewhat tough against running backs. However, they're brutal. Their defense has been really good against the pass game and against quarterbacks over the last few weeks, especially. And so I think that Samuels, because of his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, as well as his running ability, should be in for a decent game this week. It should be a solid play. He already had a little bit of value whether James Conner played or not. This brings his value up, and I think that he is a solid running back too, right around that running back 15 to 18 range for this week is where I think he can finish with his scoring.
Yeah, let's go to the DFS value picks.
All right. So as far as the DFS value picks, these are picks that are for the main slate. So this is Sunday's games only. So it's the Sunday, for me on the West Coast, it's the Sunday 10 a.m. through 5:20 through Sunday Night Football, the main slate of games, and the people that I'm looking at as values so that you can spend more heavily on other positions. The top two quarterbacks I'm looking at are Kyler Murray and Jameis Winston. They are playing in against each other in Tampa Bay. This is a game that both of these players are going to be able to just throw the ball all over the place because neither team can play defense against the pass. Both teams are awful against the pass. As far as Yahoo DFS, they're the number 8 and number 11, number 8 and number 12 quarterbacks in terms of cost. So it's a relatively cheap value, $31 and $28 compared to, say, paying $40 to pay for Lamar Jackson going up against the Bengals. Well, Lamar Jackson's obviously going to have a big game against the Bengals because not only his passing ability but his rushing ability. I think you can get close to the same amount of production for less cost on your DFS lineups by going with someone like Jameis Winston or Kyler Murray. In terms of running backs, I just talked about Jalen Samuels. I think that he is going to be a solid value. At running back, he's kind of a mid-tier running back in terms of how much he's going to cost for this week. Other guys that I think are good values, David Montgomery is going up against the Lions defense. The Lions have given up more fantasy points per game to the running back position than any other defense in the league. And so right now I think that David Montgomery, they've really started to feed him the ball a lot more over the last couple weeks. He's finished in half-point PPR, has finished the last 2 weeks with 20 points apiece. And so I think that he is in for another really, really good matchup this week, going up against the Lions, and should run all over them and should be a great value. He's another one of those mid-tier guys. Devin Singletary is another running back going up against Cleveland. Not only his rushing ability, he's another one of those kind of dual threat guys that his running, he's averaging like 6 yards a carry. Catching the ball out of the backfield, he's averaging 8 yards a reception. He has been an absolutely dangerous weapon. Last week when he finally was fully healthy, they gave him, I want to say it was 18 touches or something. He got like 95 yards rushing. He is a solid contributor, and I think is finally getting the bulk of the workload now that he is fully healthy. I think they really saved him. I understand that he had the hamstring injury earlier in the year, but I think with that and then kind of moderating how many touches he had when he was healthy beforehand, I think it has helped him, and I think they're really going to use him a lot down the stretch as they make a playoff run. Right now being one of the top, I want to say they're in the lead for the wild card position right now. So I think that Singletary should be in a really good position going up against a very questionable Cleveland Browns defense. As far as the wide receivers go, Calvin Ridley, I like him in this matchup against New Orleans. The reason is Marshawn Lattimore is going to be going up against Julio Jones. Julio Jones is going to be one of the more expensive wide receivers simply because of the name and because of his ability and what he's shown over the past 5-6 years of his career. Calvin Ridley is going to be a lot less expensive and is not going to get the heavy coverage of Marshawn Lattimore that Julio Jones is, which should allow Matt Ryan to be able to throw to him and Austin Hooper a lot more this week. I think that it's going to force Ryan to have to look towards Calvin Ridley. I think that, again, this could be a little bit of a shootout, so Ridley could be in for a really big game. Could be a really great tournament play. A couple other wide receivers. Zach Pascal, I talked about him with the Colts. Again, going up against the Miami defense that's just horrible. I believe they give up the fourth most amount of fantasy points to the wide receiver position, or maybe it's the seventh most. They're in that top 10 range. Seventh most. They've averaged giving up over the last 5 weeks 8.5 points above projection to wide receivers. So I think that Pascal is in a great matchup. He does not have T.Y. Hilton or Paris Campbell above him. He is going to be the lead wide receiver. I could see him easily getting 1, if not 2 touchdowns this week, catching close to 100 yards. And so he is going to be a great value. He does not cost very much. He's kind of under that $20 range. I think he's $17. That mid-range wide receiver is going to be about $20 to $24 on your DFS lineups on Yahoo. So he's in a good range to be relatively inexpensive and, again, allow you to spend other places. The other wide receiver that I have is Ted Ginn. Again, this is a major matchup against the Falcons. That the Falcons can't stop anyone in terms of their defense, and so if they try to push coverage more towards Michael Thomas to stop him, I think Ted Ginn gets loose for a couple of deep touchdowns. So again, he's another low cost player that I think could have a really big game for your DFS lineups this week. And then moving to the tight ends, I think really the two that I would pick is, again, Eric Ebron, talking about how he went into the office of the coordinators to try to get a little more clarity on his role and wanted to get some more work. I think that he is a possible value. And then Vance McDonald, with how well the Rams have played defense against wide receivers, I think that he will be a very solid check down option for Mason Rudolph in the game against the Rams. And so I think that Vance McDonald is at least stream worthy in season long and could be a possible good value play for your DFS lineups.
Wow, you said a mouthful. What do you want to ask?
You're welcome.
Hey, Ryan, so I was looking at Brissett's stats prior to this show, and you know what? I mean, nobody's going to argue with the fact that they're, an above 500 team in the midst of a playoff chase. But as far as fantasy points go, because I know that's your specialty, his 127 points, according to Football Reference, ranked 19th among all qualified quarterbacks. Do you think that, possibly establishing something with Ebron, who really only has 18 catches all season, and it looks like he's destined to have a pretty desolate kind of year at the wide receiver position. Do you think building on that relationship with Brissett and, getting some chemistry going would not only benefit Ebron from a fantasy standpoint, but Brissett as well?
I think it would. What you have to remember, though, is that Brissett's never. I mean, even when he was with New England his rookie year, and was forced into action. The year was it 2017 when he had to take over for Andrew Luck that year. He has never been a high production quarterback. He's been more of that game manager. He can throw the ball around when necessary, but he that's not who he is, and that's not who anyone has ever tried to use him as. And so I think that it's possible that if he could develop some chemistry with Eric Ebron, it could help both of their stats. Going back again to 2017, he had a decent chemistry with Jack Doyle, which I'm kind of surprised that Doyle hasn't had a better season. That year, I want to say that Doyle finished with like 70, 80 catches, or I think it was like 70 catches, 800 or so yards, and 4 touchdowns. And so he can develop chemistry with a receiver like that, and with T.Y. Hilton out and with Paris Campbell out, he may have no choice but to start throwing to Doyle and Ebron. So I think that this could be a good start to that. But really the engine that has kept the Colts offense going
has been Marlon Mack. Really, they've been doing what they can to depend on him.